Who here has heard of the Clean Foundation? Just a quick raise of hands. Perfect. And then with the power of the podium, I'll ask my colleagues and team from Clean to stand up. So these are great people I work with. So Clean and Scott, so we're just over in Dartmouth. We are a hub of environmental knowledge, and we're pretty good at what we do. So I invite you guys to check us out. Has everyone received the schedule? Perfect. So I've noticed that I am right after break, so I will try to speak as fast as possible. So Kwe, Tanchi, hello, and as always, thanks everyone for joining us here today. And thanks to the organizers for acknowledging the land. That was really nice what you said about the street over in Dartmouth, so that was really great. So as mentioned, my name is Corey, and I am Mi'kmaq from Nova Scotia. My background starts in Annapolis Valley, and then over time, my family moved to the beautiful rivers and shores just outside of Indigenous. I'm guessing when you heard that someone was going to be speaking about First Nation affairs and energy, you probably did not expect to see a European-looking, blonde hair, blue-eyed gentleman before you. The fact is that the face of Indigenous Canada is changing. We've all heard it, that Indigenous Canada is the fastest growing demographic in Canada. It's the youngest, it's the strongest, and it's the most energized to start making good money and fair, equitable income. So here's the graph. Other things are changing, not just the face, but our food. So who here has tried deer meat before? Raise your hands. It's pretty good, right? It's always been good, but how our food is being delivered, it is adopting other cultures, and it is also inspiring other types of food. Does anyone know what this is here? Shout it out if you know it. It's called an Indian taco. It's pretty great. Powwows across Nova Scotia, you're more than welcome to go. They'll have them, and I invite everyone to try them. And this is a restaurant in downtown Toronto. It's called the Kukum Kitchen. A plate is about $40 each, so it's very expensive, but it's very good. Other things are changing and becoming louder. So our music is being heard coast to coast to coast. It too is inspiring and changing other sounds. This here is an award-winning group called the Tribe Called Red. Most importantly, our language. Our language is also louder than ever. It's changing. It's coming out of the bush, as we say, and it is being taught in classrooms, and we're seeing it time and time again on infrastructure across Canada. Most importantly are our communities. They are seeing the most change by far. They are growing, they are very active, not just from the governance structure, which has changed immensely, but also we're seeing new construction, we're seeing new buildings, we're seeing improved homes and sometimes new homes. Does anyone recognize this place here? Raise the hands if you know it. Some would say a delicious steak. This is Member 2. Member 2 is a flagship community, and it showcased all across Canada of a great success story. We are seeing an amazing push of higher paying jobs, new income, and with this spend, it's being reinvested back into the local community. A wise man once said that Indigenous communities need to stop managing poverty and instead start managing wealth. And we're starting to see that all across Canada. We're seeing economic reconciliation. A large contributor to economic reconciliation is through partnerships and joint ventures. Now, putting a picture up of our Grand National Chief and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and talking about partnerships, there's a good chance many people will naturally think about pipelines. It's in the news all the time, especially when it comes to Indigenous affairs. And the fact is that there is many Indigenous groups that have done very well from petroleum. This here is Fort McKay. A little bit about Fort McKay. They are a First Nation that did a lot of fur trading, and they traded almost exclusively to Europe. Europe stopped buying and stopped trading with Canadian fur traders, and the community became quite poor. Fort McKay also happens to be right next door of the oil sands. So they decided that instead of the community facing poverty, they partnered a fair partnership, which is the important thing to take away, a very fair partnership with Fort McKay. And now Fort McKay is one of the most, it's very similar to Member 2. It's great employment. I believe almost everyone on that nation is making around $73,000 a year. So pretty good for sure. Okay. Point. So that's petroleum. Perhaps a more innovative, safer approach would be the clean energy market. And we are seeing First Nations almost on par, or if not more, adopting joint ventures and partnerships in the renewable energy sector. We see wind farms, we see solar gardens, biofuel burning, we're seeing small hydro dams, all partnerships all across Canada. Now, whether it be renewable or non-renewable energy, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit have been doing energy projects from the beginning of time. We're very good at it. We're not at all new to the idea of energy. And just as a little game, I'm going to try to surprise people in this room. I'm thinking of a fuel source, and I try to want everyone to think of something, and I'm going to keep giving clues. And at the end, I want to see if anyone can guess what I'm thinking of, okay? So it's an energy source that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people have been creating in Canada from the beginning of time, well before the Europeans knew about this side of the planet. It's an energy product that can be transported, traded, stored. It can be burned to create heat and light. It can be consumed. It has medical benefits, and it burns like a fuel, but it's not wood. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Whale. Sorry? Whale oil. Exactly, whale oil. So usually this is a hint that I would try to give people, but we're all in a room of smart people, so we all got there. So this here is whale oil. I'd be hard-pressed to call it a renewable energy source now. But jokes aside, it is a very highly processed, specialized training fuel that we've been producing for a very long time. Much like the fur trade, we had a whale oil trade and a fat trade. So in conclusion of that little game, thanks for playing, we understand oil. And we understand oil. Of course we understand oil. We understand energy, and we understand their need to be responsible. We know how to create, we know how to create successful long-term energy projects, and we also know how to be equitable and fair partnerships in any project that we take on. I get the rare opportunity to travel across Canada, and I get to meet with governments and businesses on topics like this. Time and time again, I'll often hear echoes of these organizations saying it's really difficult and sometimes hard to start, to meet, and especially to finish energy projects with First Nations communities. What I say to these groups, again, is that Indigenous Canada has been doing energy projects from the beginning of time. We understand how to do them. Where the trouble starts is that we have a different set of rules and regulations that we follow. We follow them because we've been doing energy for so long. We know what works here. We know what works in Canada. So let's talk about rules, because everyone loves talking about rules. Think of what makes a developing and a developed country, or the new term I believe we use, which is a low, middle, and high-income country. Laws and rules, and whether or not the country will enforce laws and rules on their borders. So let's talk about a developed or a low, medium income country. This country or state is more likely to forego or be flexible on some environmental regulations if it knows that when that project comes in, it is going to add value to the resource. It's going to add value by extraction. It's going to employ some people. It's going to bring in tax dollars, which is very important. And if enough of these projects happen, it may be able to bring that developed or low middle income country into a developed or high income country, regardless of any environmental or humanitarian effects the project may have. Now, a developed country, or a high-income country, they have a stronger set of rules and regulations that they're going to follow. They are not going to be as hard-pressed if the project doesn't go in, because they already have a good economy, they have healthy people, they're more likely to hold off on that project. So we all believe that Canada is a developed country. Just a raise of hands. Is Canada a developed country? This isn't a trick question. Of course it is. We have laws, we have rules, we have environmental regulations, we have a fair and equitable legal system. This clicker, I would be a little more pressured or a little more on the side of thinking that Indigenous Canada has more developed laws and regulations than the rest of Canada. Our stronger and stricter environmental laws and regulations help the community because it's making sure that nothing really terrible is going to happen, while at the same time making sure that the people that are affected by the community are getting a fair shake. It also protects the energy project. If the project gets the backing of the nation, it's already gone through checks and balances that will ensure that project's success. So this here, my favorite, is a triple bottom line. People, planet, profit. I'm sure we've all heard of that. So when a project does come in, it severely helps. Monstrously, there's a word there, I just can't think of it, helps the Indigenous community and the rest of Canada. Indigenous Canada wants to become active, profitable, fair partners in energy projects because we help them take on that triple bottom line. When a project does come in, and please apologies for the term Aboriginal, we don't use it anymore, and it is a little out of date. I helped put together this with TD for the market outcomes, so it's a little out of date. But the important thing is that the employment rate is rising and then the unemployment rate is shrinking. And this is because we're seeing many partnerships with renewable energy projects. Okay, perfect. So back to the business or to the government that I hear that say it's hard to do projects, there's too much restriction, the communication rates are poor. It's It's because we have more developed laws and rules by result, as I mentioned, of us being further along on our journey of how to do business, how to do environmental business, how to do renewable energy business in Canada. We know what makes great projects, and we know what can benefit all Canadians. So to close, whenever I'm given a stage to speak, and thank you, I always take the opportunity to talk highly about my nation and that we're growing, and growing definitely for the better. How we're leaders, owners, and innovators on energy, especially renewable energy projects. And most importantly, if anyone in this room here today is thinking about doing a new energy project, renewable or efficiency, thank you. But secondly, please try to find ways to involve your local Indigenous communities. I guarantee you it'll be the most interesting, eye-opening, and probably one of the better, more secure ventures you'll come about. Canada is becoming a lot more Indigenous, and I feel that it's only for the better for all Canadians. Thank you. Walalan.